for me.
Yeah, it'll go
there
live.
it goes. Okay, I see it. It is episode 30, right?
Yep, we're on 30.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Weird Science Marvel Comics Podcast, episode 30.
Big 3-0.
Yeah, 3-0. I'm
Midlife
here
crisis.
with Brandon. I remember that's when Eric's life all went to heck. He ended up telling me because 30 was heading towards him. And I said, yep, that's when everything hits a brick wall there, my friend.
Yep.
He's like, it won't happen to me. And then it was probably about 6 months after his 30th. So he's 30 and a half at the point and gained 35 pounds and then just had no idea what it hit him.
That's when you start blowing knees out on basketball courts.
Yeah, when you're playing basketball against faculty versus kids and stuff like that. I was still playing full out hockey, but I started getting a little, it was one of those where I was used to, like, on a breakaway, nobody's catching, and they started catching.
Yeah.
And that's when it was like one of those where all of a sudden I'm on a breakaway, I get stick checked and they take it the other way. I'm like, well, what just happened? Like that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But here we are.
How I remember it.
Oh, it's the worst. But yes, here we are. We are in episode 30 and we have a ton of books tonight and a couple really big books. Because of that, we're going to put the quick books aside to do the main books tonight. And we will be adding some extra ones like a Captain America or a Thor for next week's podcast. So those two especially will be on next week's podcast because we do have a bunch of books. And we're going to start with Avengers number 10. Also, I do have to mention that Double A Ron will be with us later. Right now, it is just going to be me and Brandon for a couple books, and then he will join us. He's still reading the books. He's still getting ready for everything to do. Yes, he does. So we're going to do these. I told him that he can get fully invested in the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man, and because of that, we're going to start with Avengers number 10. Which is also legacy numbering 700. We usually don't bring up the legacy numbering, but because it was 700, that was a big thing. We got a big issue. It's really an oversized issue. And boy, by the end of it, it started feeling very.
I think there's 700 characters in this issue.
Yeah, there might be. Yeah, there really is. And I'll tell you, it's Avengers number 10, written by Jason Aaron, art by Ed McGuinness and David Marquez, with guest artists Fraser Irving, Adam Kubert, and Andrea Sorrentino. We get an oversized issue of Avengers for issue 700. It's all about fighting and setting up things to come. There's a lot of things going on and two really good cliffhangers. There's also a little sit down with Odin and Robbie Reyes, more Phoenix Wolverine than I expected this week.
Yeah.
And over 7 trillion characters. There is a lot. And what happens with this is you start off with, in Russia and a whole different team. And the thing
we were
is,
in KGB's dad's house.
That's what I thought too, especially with the bear with Ursa Major there drinking his vodka. But the thing about this is it does all tie in eventually, but it threw me off a bit at first because I was expecting Namor. I was expecting more and more Namor.
Which go back and I'm like, what happened last issue? I don't.
Yeah, and it was basically Namor attacking and all that stuff. So with this, it seemed like, boy, this is a little out of, the thing. And it seemed like, okay, you have this Winter Guard, which tied in a little in my mind to the Captain America book a little, and things were starting to swirl around. Yeah, things were swirling around in my head a bit here. But you end up finding out that the Russians, now they're putting together the Winter Guard. We're putting the gang back together. They are a little wary about it because, the KGB back in the day would have been, the ones to screw them out of things. Now, this is spelled out. This is Russia. The KGB is gone. We're going to get, you're the team now. You're here for Mother Russia. You're here. We're all for the people. We're going to go.
Avengers of Russia.
Yeah, basically. And it's funny, too. It's like they're the Avengers, maybe the Thunderbolts of Russia, whatever you can think of.
They got a little more of an edge to them than the
Avengers. They do. That's why I thought of like the Thunderbolts deal. But with that, they are going to take down Namor because of who he attacked leading into this issue. Now, in the meantime, Namor has taken the fight to Hydropolis.
I'm not quite sure where that is.
It's the undersea biosphere known as Hydropolis, normally underwater. Okay, gotcha. Basically, without Pauly Shore. But
maybe that's why he wants it out of there. Pauly Shore crept in.
Pauly Shore's in there. He rips it out. Namor's there, and he's grabbing it out of the ocean. He's like, everybody out of the ocean. It's basically what we used to have at the Quakertown pool when I was a kid. You had Adult Swim. So they blow the whistle. All the kids have to get out of the pool. You weren't allowed to be in the pool. It seems like Namor is calling Adult Swim all the people out of the water except people that
Even if you're not there by like evil means. You're not an oil digger or anything.
Isn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah, they're just a research facility.
They are air breathers. Get out. Get out of town. They're yelling. And you do see, especially like tiger sharks there, but you do see like all the people that he did gather up, the piranhas, Man-O-War.
Defenders of the deep, they call themselves.
Yeah. Basically, again, the Avengers of underwater. So you have all these teams going. And so the Avengers are kind of scattered at this point. You have Tony racing Robbie Reyes in a car to try to prove he's faster than the Hell Charger. There's a little aside that comes in later where Tony, and I really thought Tony was being a jerk because they're racing, and what's at stake is a pretty advanced wheelchair for
a kid.
For his kid. It's a powered wheelchair for Robbie Reyes's brother. And I'm like, boy, Tony's a jerk. If he wins, and he's like, hey, even if I win, I'll give you that wheelchair. So what's going on then is all the Avengers are kind of scattered. They're all getting called
doing random things.
Yeah, and they're getting called, and it's kind of a overextended opening.
Yeah, the only one that bugged me was Caps because it basically goes against his book.
It goes against his book, yes. Yeah. I agree because he's there with Ross. He's there with Thunderbolt Ross, and he shouldn't be there because of what's going on in his book, but he's there.
Ross, like, to me, he shouldn't be that upset that the Avengers are ditching him. Like, it's almost like he wants nothing to do with superheroes in Cap's book, and here it's the opposite.
Yep, and even with it, he's upset at the Avengers ditching him, but also seems to want to get Cap mad about Black Panther leading it too. Yeah. It's almost like, Black Panther. You know what? If it's not a guy with the star on his chest, I'm like, I don't know what you're getting.
He's a little mad, I think, about I'll say it, the race stuff, and then because he's a scumbag. Yeah. And then he's also mad.
He is a scumbag.
To Wakanda, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not America's toy anymore, per se.
Yep. So he seems to be upset, which he goes off then and kind of does his own thing here. But the middle section, pretty much of this book, is just these three teams: Namor's team, the Winter Guard, and the Avengers just fighting. And there is a decent enough setup for the Winter Guard.
Yeah.
If we're going to see them a lot, I guess we're going to see them down the line a little more because they really do a pretty, I'm not going to say a great job, but they do an extended job of the Avengers. And basically it's one of those where it's, if it's me and you fighting, and we're in this book, you're the Winter Guard, I'm the Avengers. And I'd be like, so Brandon, your, physical attacks aren't working, but your magic. So it's like so spelled out.
Yeah, like Tony's like, oh, how did I get the magic guy? Where's Doctor Strange when you need him? And this
it's so spelled out, like what these other people like, well, if you don't like that, I'm gonna press this button and blow up your, you're really getting a over the top, explanation of who the characters are.
It's a very obvious, almost match for match.
And it is. That's what actually I was just going to say. You have that's the Iron Man of Russia.
And even like the Solvik Storm God.
And so when you have this, but you finally do get to kind of the gist of it back to Namor, who's basically like, you know what? I hate you guys. I don't like you. Black Panther especially. I told you before.
Yeah, they have a deep history.
Yeah, we have some problems here. Now let's fight again. And they start fighting again. But in the meantime, the whole idea of the Avengers being there is just kind of like, okay, Hydropolis, they haven't done anything wrong. We got to get these people out.
Safety,
The Russian, the Winter Guard want to get Namor because of what he did to the
they
Russian.
Don't care about the people being hurt, hurt or caught in the crossfire. They're just getting Namor at all costs, and the Avengers are more concerned really with
and
the welfare of the people.
It continues a lot of like the trash talking throughout all of them. Like the Avengers, like we got to protect the people. The Winter Guard, we don't care of people. They're not our people. Let's kill. And they're fighting. And you have like, crazy, you smell like vodka. You're this. And you do have that one panel where it's just like them, both teams there facing off. In the meantime, you have General Ross hears about this and they're like, what should we do? He's like, we shouldn't get involved in this. Like, let them kill themselves. But if not, get me the agent. Like, get me the agent. We need him. And you find out that it is Agent Coulson. And this is where I said, this is like the first cliffhanger, because Ross is there. He's trying to put together things, and it's Agent Coulson with the Squadron Supreme of America. He has the guys there ready to do, pretty much go against the Avengers. Well, I think that they were already obviously trying to get something going, but once Ross heard from Cap, hey, we're not dealing with you. You're not anything to do with us. Ross seems to be like, well, I'm going to control some team. So get me Coulson, and they have and that.
He's got Batman, Shazam, Superman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's what
Flash.
It really does look like that. Yeah. So they have that. It's like the amalgam team.
Yeah, who's the guy in the hood in the back? Who would you say that DC person is?
That is, I don't know. I was just going to say Dr. Midnight.
There you go.
Who knows? But with that, though, that's kind of the first story. That's kind of the first story's over.
It was a little weird. The kind of when the fight turned and they started fighting each other, the Russian team and the Avengers, when She-Hulk breaks up a fight between two people on the Russian team.
On the Russian team. They start fighting each other.
What's going on here?
Yeah,
that threw me off for a second.
You have their big thing was Red Widow is the mysterious teammate on this team. Because at the point you had the Crimson Dynamo, who was the Russian Iron Man. It pretty much says that. They're like, hey, we need you. You're in charge. You're going to do this. Well, Red Widow's really in charge. And he
even called it out in the beginning. He's like, listen, I know I'm not really in charge. This one back here is.
And they're like, no. You're in charge now. No, he was right. and so you have that. But with that, you also had, like we said at the beginning, you had them separate, and you had little character moments where you even had Carol Danvers saying to Thor, like, man, you and Jennifer, huh? You're an item. Well, what's going on with that? Thee do not know. Does thou liketh me? And you had the whole deal. That was kind of funny, but it was okay. But you had these little character moments there at the beginning. But we're going to go on then to this next story because it's a oversized issue. And what happened with me is I actually like this first part enough. The problem is not enough happened. So it seemed like it's either that it was extended or it was one of those where maybe if this was the full story, because this is like a 40-page book, maybe if they could extend it, they would have done more. But it seemed like Jason Aaron was just like, well, I'm not going to have enough time to do more. So let's just have them fight, introduce these teams. And then really the big thing is to get Ross and Coulson and the Squadron going by.
Fourth team involved in the book.
Yeah. So you go off then, though, and we start getting things that I never thought that we would get in this book or anything. One being Odin sitting with Robbie Reyes and giving him spinning yarns about the Ghost Riders and how they are connected with the Star Brands and how Robbie ended up killing one in the Legacy issue, which we saw, kind of points to the idea of what's going to go down soon. This may come in handy, like how you killed the Star. Even if you don't know,
remember,
try to remember, try to figure it out, because this may become important because the Star Brand is going to be coming and who knows what's going to go on. And also, I like that Robbie wants to know about the past Ghost Riders, but you even have this thing with him like, well, I really didn't have to make a deal with the devil. And Odin kind of says to him, like, yeah, you know what? You all have to make a deal with the devil, whether you know it or not. And it kind of does and it throws that in there and all that. So, and he says, and it's so funny because as you start even this little section, you see that Tony came through with this promise, and he's got his brother has this flying wheelchair going around, you know, woo, tell Iron Man, this is my favorite, whatever. And then once Odin starts telling, like, there's always a price to pay. And you know what? Family is important. I'm like, yeah, that brother's going to die.
Yeah, that's all I thought too. Right away.
He is never going to survive this. And yeah, you have where Odin gets into the Hell Charger and they're going to fly around, drive around. And it was okay. You know, you have that joke like, boy, God is my co-pilot, that Odin. And they're going. And you have these like meanwhiles, because then you're like, oh, you know, a Starbrand will come. We'll have to see who it is. And then we go off into space. Why did they have to make things different angles and stuff?
I don't know. This drove me crazy.
It drove me insane. And this is one of those where I don't know. Nowadays, you got to realize that a lot of people read these things digitally.
Yeah.
And it really screws you up.
Turning your page to read it and it keeps flipping on you.
That's the problem. It depends on your reader and things like that. And I don't like to have to scroll around with the settings that I have on my thing, because
not once I'm in a book.
And here's the thing. A lot of people who do the podcast will do the books while they're talking digitally. I do my things 100% digitally. This is how I get all my books. I do everything with it. And I have to go through this for this podcast. Then I do I'm telling you, sometimes I mess with the settings and it's just as simple as clicking, you know, kind of the angle 90%, but it's not that simple. No. The thing I have, and I have the comic rack is what I go with. And this thing gets wacky if you start going. So when this sort of thing happens, I try to read tilting my head.
I know.
Nuts. But yeah, it's Loki. It's Loki with the Celestials. So we were waiting to see what happened with him. He's there with them, and he's still going on.
He's their prisoner.
Yeah, and he's going on more of like and they're not responding to him. They're just standing there. It's like a roll call. And he's just like, you know what, Celestials? You know that I did the right thing. And it's like he's pleading with them, you know, like he's trying to convince them that he's a good guy, even though he always plays the bad guy. We had this before, and that's kind of seems what he's going with anyway, that he had to assemble the Avengers, and he did by using
another threat.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, they don't know. And then Wolverine shows up. And I was like, what is going on here? And the little telltale deal is, got a little hay in his mouth and the end of it is on fire. I'm like, this is the Phoenix Wolverine. What is going on?
That 2-issue Thor thing we just read.
I'm like, what is going on here? And that's what it ends up being, where he kind of is with Loki. He ends up being able to talk to Celestials, which in a goofy moment, the one Celestial gives him a thumbs up, which seemed a little bit too wacky for me. But again, it keeps going with this whole deal of, you know, things are going to go wrong. You know, we have this big thing coming, but also Loki, I'm going to give you a little wink, wink. You know, I'm going to give you a wink, wink. We're going to get out of here. And was the wink, wink. And he's like, that was the signal, Loki. Let's run.
Get out of here.
Out of here. And with this, you do see when he kind of goes all Phoenix, you see a bunch of things. You see Punisher, you see Moon Knight, you see a bunch of
Man Thing with
the hammer.
And Iron Man's head in his hand.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you see a lot of these future
things. Is that that Captain dude we just saw in the
I think it is
other Avengers crushing the shield and Major Ursa down there,
a bunch of stuff.
Ursa Star brands all over the place.
Star brands, so it visually looks great.
Yeah, that's my favorite page.
It looks really good, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, that might be, I don't know, maybe Andrea Sorrentino is the last part.
Yeah, he's the last one.
Yeah, this page looks great. And it's kind of like one of those, again, the future look of what's going on and things like that. But they get out of there. And then you go off to Wasp, and it's Janet. and she's in Romania and Transylvania. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Dracula.
Yeah. And I'm like, and really, I'm like,
Draculas.
we're going to have the Draculas. I wish we had the
I thought she looked, I thought she looked bit at one point.
Yeah, I did too.
Like, just by the way she's drawn by Sorrentino here, it looks like she's got fangs. I'm like, oh no, they got her.
At one point, she looks like she has fangs. And then I swear on the one where she's like, copy that, when she's like, I'm not really one to follow, just do recon. Copy that. It looks like she's got blood streaming out of her neck. So she's there, and I'm like, really? Are we getting into Dracula's here? Are we actually going to have Dracula? And what it is, it ends up being Blade that she flies down.
Must be prisoner of Dracula, though.
Yeah, he must be. And I like Blade. I'm a big fan of Blade. So this is cool. He always ends up as a cliffhanger at things. You know what I mean? Because it's such a big deal. Now, this is where even Wolverine and all this kind of points to the Avengers need to be bigger. They need to have more people. They need to have everything going on bigger than what they have at the moment. And that seems to be why Janet's off to get Blade. And she asked, do you want to join the Avengers? And he's like, get my sword. She says, good answer. And that ends it. And that kind of has me excited.
Yeah. And we have another Wolverine. So Phoenix Wolverine is in current continuity now. So we have another Wolverine running around. Like, that's what we need in Marvel.
Like, I was going to say, that's all we need. But I'm telling you, overall, I think this is decent enough. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I wanted to, at the beginning, when they were having those little moments and then things started going with Namor, it started picking up, but then it drug on a lot. I did like a bit of the ending. I really like Blade, so that got me excited. But the Phoenix Wolverine kind of threw me off. I do like Coulson in the Squadron.
I wish Marvel, with the dead character they're attempting to bring back, would just go in a direction and stick with it. Stop confusing everybody, because I'm not going to get into my Wolverine rant right now.
It's funny because you're one of the biggest Wolverine fans, but yet you just want one Wolverine. You want to be able to kind of settle down and follow one. Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to Eric and I said, we have Uncanny X-Men this week. And I said, and I'm sure it's going to be brought up by Brandon that he's an X-Men fan, but he's a Wolverine X-Men fan, not just X-Men. What would you give this?
I'm just under you at a 7. Some of the, the first story really was kind of my problem with it. The one I was least interested in, I think. Yeah. I'm really interested in all these things they're teasing coming in this book.
Yeah.
But I hope it doesn't turn out to be another, first host type situation where we were real excited when it all started and
then it kind of drags on.
It fizzles out and drags on. So
hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I hope they address some of these, these actual things head on and we get some action happening here. I liked the Major Ursa character. He's always fun when he pops up in books.
Yeah.
So it all together as a package gave me enough to give it a 7. I dug the art. I didn't like that art in the Robbie Reyes story, though.
No, it was off.
That reminded me of like a 90s MTV cartoon they would make with that 3D drawing.
Yeah.
Oh, drove me crazy.
The head, or whatever
7.
that one was.
Yeah.
That's the one it reminded me of. But we're going to move on to the next book, which is the end of a mini series. So we're going to be finishing up this, and it's Cosmic Ghost Rider number 5, written by Donny Cates, art by Dylan Burnett, Antonio Fabella, and VC's Clayton Kells. Cosmic Ghost Rider wraps up with the timeline reset, and Frank realizing that it takes a whole lot to change fate. He then gets pissed off and rides off to the Guardians of the Galaxy book. And I like this. I like it. Not a lot to talk about.
Yeah, this was a better conclusion than his Inhumans conclusion last week. But you're right. There's really almost not much. We could wrap this up in 5 minutes.
This could be a 3-minute. I'm telling you, and I love the art. I've loved the art throughout that, and I love it's that cartoony style. But where it really gets me is Frank's expressions. With that long face and things, and basically with this, he ends up having to, destroy this world that Punisher Thanos, his, grown-up son has created. We do get a resolution here when he does just go to fight Thanos. He's got to defeat Thanos. And Thanos says, we've done this before, father. And I like when Frank's finally like, I'm not your dad. Just stop it.
Yeah, the attachment's gone now, buddy.
Yeah, he's like, it's done. Well, and as this goes on, and he does see the scared look of himself and his wife when he's there as he's going off. Well, you get this like, you know, I've been a son, a soldier, husband, father, widower, the hero, and it goes down the line. But I like where he's just like, he knows he's got to do something. He says to baby Thanos, don't watch. Like, I'm going to go do some stuff here. Don't do like daddy does, because at one point he does blast Thanos over the cliff into that city, into the city that you saw. And baby Thanos is just so excited again. And I love this. I love the little things. There's not much to talk about. But
baby Thanos has kind of disappeared from the book the last 2 issues since grown Thanos.
And this is where I love this line for what happens, because he just launches Thanos into the city. Baby Thanos is jumping again and again. And he goes, no. And then he looks off to the distance and sees that tower with the Punisher symbol. And he goes, never again. Yeah. He says, listen to me. And it's a nice moment. We've had a setup. We know that the best thing about this isn't baby Thanos, because baby Thanos is baby Thanos. He's there. He's been cute. We've laughed at him.
He's had his lines.
The thing with this is, throughout this whole mini series, though it's played a lot for goofs throughout this isn't exactly the most serious of stories that we've gotten. But we know what Frank is trying to do. And Frank is trying to make things better. He's legitimately trying to pretty much, in his mind, save the universe and save things. So he says, listen to me, no matter what happens. This isn't on you. You don't have to do anything or be anything you don't want to be. Remember that. And baby Thanos, I don't understand. He's like, yeah, you will, or you won't. Either way, do me a favor. Don't watch me now. And you see him watching. He's just going to watch this whole deal.
He may not, because of who he gets picked up by at towards the end, but I'm in my mind, he watched everything.
Yeah, but this is a big moment. And to me, in a goofy book, this is a well-earned moment, and a moment that kind of has a little bit of feels, because you know that Frank at this point realizes that he really can't change much. He's tried and he really can. He sees that he's messed things up, but he goes down into the city, basically just goes full out, Ghost Rider, and just heads off to face Thanos. And Thanos says, we've done this before. We've done this dance before. I killed you. You saw your grave. That's when I killed you.
Yeah. So that answers that one question I had last issue.
And that's good, because we did want to know about that. So we find out that Thanos had killed him. And then he says, we're going to try to change this. I'm going to fight you. And it's great, because then he's like, you know what? It's time for you to get penance. And he's like, you tried that before. Your stupid stare doesn't work on me. He's like, oh, no, I don't mean the stare. And he just goes full out. And even before that, he says, I've laid all, I don't usually go full power.
Yeah.
If I go full power.
Those were my favorite lines of the book, where he's like, you just have no idea how much I hold back. Like, I walk, I could destroy a world.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
That's a sweet line. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a problem. If he realizes that, so he has held back. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to hold back just as much right now. I am going to destroy, and he does. He destroys him, and then rips his skull off, and then starts screaming at it. Then he crushes it. I mean, it is so awesome. Over the top. And then where you have, out of nowhere, a girl comes down. Hey, are you Frank Castle? Hey, by the way, is Cable with you? Like, no. Like, oh, I have this for him.
He's coming soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, he needed this. Time jumps, and I'm like, oh, there's his way out. He's got that.
The reset button.
Yep, and he goes back to the farm where he is there with his wife, and it's funny because he's playing with baby Thanos, and Thanos has soiled himself, and Ghost Rider, Frank goes there, he's like, put the baby down, and then I even like this where he's actually even trying to teach himself a lesson of this world where, I'm sorry, don't hurt me. It's like, don't beg, don't ever beg. But as he walks away,
to the end, the dialogue was just short, sweet, and to the point.
Oh, it's so
I really
good.
Loved it.
Yeah, and with this, you get this thing where this is another thing with baby Thanos, and maybe you can say that this has a big effect on him too, because baby Thanos is like, you're gonna take me back, right? And he's like, yep, that's what we're gonna do. And then even baby Thanos realizes, like, but this timeline won't exist, right? No, it won't. So those people, they'll die, right? Yep, they'll die. But maybe there'll be hope, you know,
they'll
with
die
it.
with
They'll
hope.
die with hope. And he's
Yeah.
like, you know, he's going to slide out. He'll slide by 2. So you got that whole idea. But yeah, you then go to Titan 100 years ago, and there he is. He puts baby Thanos away, and then he's walking
Baby Thanos
away.
looks pissed.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, at one point when he leaves baby Thanos, I think that now you get the idea.
Yeah. Now he's upset.
like, oh yeah, now he's an abandoned child who
Yeah.
wants to get back at his father. Like, through all of this, Frank goes back to place baby Thanos back to say, listen, I tried, it's not working. And yet I think that this is the last moment that actually, if Frank would have kept him, everything would have been fine.
I think so too. That's what I get from this one, like, real short, tight panel with baby Thanos'
he
face
is so
miserable.
upset. Yeah,
it's like the Thanos look he now has on his face forever.
Basically, for baby Thanos, you know, you have Frank's going out to get a pack of smokes. He ain't coming back, and he's I'll see you around. And to me, it's like all of this, and you thought that there was no way to change things, but there was. You had changed it, and you just messed up. And then you talk about the end, because that would be more.
Well, the end is just Frank walks out of the room after this stare he gets from baby Thanos, and it's death of a young version of death. You know, it doesn't look like death. She's got skin and everything, but she's like, thank you, Francis. And he's just like, for the love of, edited podcast here. He's like, thanks for what? And he's like, well, she goes, somebody had to teach him how to kill.
Yeah. And that's what it ends up with. His legacy now is leaving Thanos and knowing how to kill, instead of keeping him cute little baby Thanos soiling himself. He could have just kept
back and forth. He's just like, why him? Why can't you just leave him alone? She's like, you know.
And that's it even continues with that good moment where he's even still acting like a father. Like, he's like, just leave him alone. Please give this kid a chance. You know, can't there be second chances? She's like, nope. Not with me. It doesn't happen. And then he's like,
children.
And I like it. It's just basically like, you know what? I am pissed, and off I go to the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's so funny with it that he just storms off. He's so angry, and it says on the bottom, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Return of Guardians of the Galaxy, and then on the opposite page there, you even have the #1 Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, man, they're really pushing that. But I thought this was
they know who's going to sell the book, I think.
Yeah. I love this character, and I love the way Donny Cates wrote it. I had a great time with this miniseries. This is pretty much the one thing out of all the stuff we do that I'm so glad that we started doing this podcast just for this book. Yeah. It's my favorite book that we've done. And because of that, and like we said, not a lot to talk about, still giving it a 9. And I could go probably higher. I could almost go to a 9.5. I'm going to go to a 9. I'm going to relax a little, because you do end up kind of where everything's just reset. And it doesn't mean
it's almost like it never happened,
But the big point is I think that, and this might be us filling in the blanks, and we try not to do that a lot, but
we get mad about
that look from Thanos, Thanos, to me shows this wasn't just the simple, oh, well, let's replace this. It's all going to set. You still could have changed it. And he doesn't. He doesn't, because he just doesn't realize. I also think you could even say that at this point, he's so upset with himself. He's actually seen a happy version of himself with his wife that he had to destroy, because he was getting rid of, he also saw what happened with Punisher Thanos, and it all went wrong. So he thinks he's a defeated man. And he's just like, I think that he was hoping he just put baby Thanos there. Baby Thanos would have learned his lesson and, grew up. But the pissed off look on baby Thanos really makes this makes the whole story for me. It's so good.
It's a great ending.
Yeah, it is.
I was really scared when I picked up the book. I'm like, I hope this one doesn't kind of flutter out at the end, like so many comic book stories kind of end up doing. And it just was a good wraparound conclusion where, you're kind of left to an open interpretation about how Frank and Thanos would have really ended. But I don't know. I feel like there's enough there. We're not, quote unquote, filling in the blank.
And really, I mean, we're talking about a timeline changing, is it real or not type of story. The week that Mr. Miracle came out, I'd sooner read this. And this is a 5-issue.
It was just much more like sweet and to the point. You know what I'm saying? Like you understood everything that happened kind of in a similar way in Mr. Miracle, but just with a better better way of storytelling.
Yep. Yeah. Mr. Miracle was 12 issues. This was 5. I'd read this 3 times through, and I'd read 15 issues of this than that. So yeah,
like if you want to buy a book for Christmas for someone, you say, well, this will get you into comics possibly. Yeah. This might be one of them because you don't need to really know a whole lot about any.
No, and it's funny too because you do have a lot of characters getting thrown in, but they're thrown in a way that's fun. I mean, like at one point Galactus is there, he's jumping around. You have the Watcher there, but they are done in a way that's kind of not integral to everything going on. But if you know what they are, or it makes you go and learn about them, it makes it, which that's how I kind of was, and it made it even better. I really, really liked it. I liked it so much. What did you give a score?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 with you. Okay, I think I'd give the whole series right around a 9.
I'd give it a 9 as well. I loved it. This will be probably the first trade that I get of a Marvel thing because I'll want to have this just to have. And really, it's funny you say, it's not just for me to read later. I think that I would use this as something along the lines of if one of my sons said, hey, I'd say, read this real quick. And it's such a quick read too.
Yeah, you'd be done with that in 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I think that Eric should read it. I've told him, and he likes the idea of hearing. The funny thing is, all Eric does is he wants me to tell him about the books all the time. So I sit there and and it's hard because we started doing this on Wednesday. We don't get the review copies still. And I think that our messages to Marvel have gone for naught. I did get a name to contact. No, nothing back. So we get these books on Wednesday and have to do it real quick to do the podcast Wednesday night. And then I do the extra part where I go and talk to Eric the rest of the week about these. And the best thing is he seems he's talking about Extermination all day today, about how much he liked that. No, the Uncanny X-Men, he liked that. I showed him the cover and he's like, man, that looks really neat and whatever. But when it comes down to the work involved of coming home Wednesday and getting ready, and he wants no parts of it. No parts. He's like, yeah, have fun, sucker. But yeah, we're going to move on to the last book that me and you are going to talk about, just me and you, before AA Run comes in. It's another Donny Cates book, Venom #8, written by Donny Cates, art by Iban Coelho, Andres Mosa, and VC's Clayton Cowles. This is a pretty kick-butt issue of Venom. We get a brief but cool return of Flash Thompson and see who stole the Dragon DNA and why. I think most Venom fans will be fired up by the end of this issue. A short and sweet deal. And again, I think that what I like about Donny Cates the most is that he does end up getting the most out of what he does. You know what I mean? Like you can have you don't have to have over explanations. You don't have to have, sometimes there'll be a lot of talking at the beginning of this. There's a lot of talking, but everything fits. Everything is for a purpose in my mind. And the setup with this is you still have Eddie, and he's still captured. But with that, you start off where you think he's off looking at Flash Thompson's grave. He's there with Flash Thompson. It ends up being false. It ends up being like a VR type Matrix thing that they're doing this. And this leads to more of this talk because they think that he has gotten the symbiote dragon DNA. They're still going with who was it who ended up stealing this DNA. But with that, you get this whole the maker saying
evil Reed
Richards. Yeah. So you have him and talking about it, but he throws out that whole idea because the big thing with Eddie now is that his symbiote, he can't really talk to it. It's lost connection to the host. The dragon's down, and to me, it's very similar to if you had a Green Lantern ring and you haven't recharged it. So, he has to go, he can't go to space, but he kind of has to. He has to go to the home planet, and all this stuff would have been the way to kind of recharge things, and he hasn't. So the symbiote is just almost like a primordial reactionary thing now. It just goes
off instincts. There's no reasoning with it. There's no talking to it. There's no response.
And we found that out before. So with this, he's not really focusing that much on. There's just said, you told me that my other's brain dead. And it starts with this thing here with that he shows that the maker shows that they do have this weird sort of DNA strand symbiote of Flash. They ended up being able to take it. And with that, what they want to do is dig up Flash's body and end up,
Study.
kind of reinvigorate whatever it will be. It'll be the
He wraps it
Draxulus.
around into almost seeming like he wants to help Eddie.
Yeah.
And Eddie's almost on board with it until he mentions digging up Flash Thompson's body.
And this,
he wants none of that.
And with this, you got a bit of a setup here at the beginning, even where he's talking to Flash's grave and things like that, about the idea that the symbiote still kind of yearns for Flash, still has, Flash is better. And Eddie even says, I'm really sorry that you're dead. You're like a brother to me, even though, we haven't had the best relationship. But it was more because I was kind of jealous because you seem to be the best Venom there was. And, and I wish that you were here. You don't deserve what happened to you. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Maker kind of is like, well, we have the Strand. And it seems to be like this whole idea where he's like, oh, wait a second, maybe Flash, and anybody had to have thought it right away that, this is how he's going to bring Flash back.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, but it's not that simple, because what happens is about that whole digging up his body, and Eddie goes nuts and the symbiote goes nuts, and they start just smashing the Maker, just smashing his face into the ground. But he gets attacked, and they pretty much anti-Venom soldiers. They have sonic guns and things. And with that, they end up going, and the symbiote grabs this DNA strand of Flash, and it ends up breaking and then kind of combines with him. Then I thought, okay, now we're going to have Flash. That's the symbiote now. And I actually thought that would have been cool idea. I thought that is awesome. This is going to be so awesome.
Flash's personality now.
And I thought this was all set up, because now he had the brain dead symbiote. Well, now this takes place. You don't want to have 18 people talking in Eddie's head. But if it's just Flash now, that's awesome. The problem is it burns off.
I know, it goes away.
I'm like, really? Because at this point, he turns into Flash. It's Flash Venom in Eddie going.
He goes all Agent Venom. He's got the guns and his tentacles.
It's so awesome. And even Eddie's like, boy, Flash was pretty kick butt.
Yeah,
and
he
they
was.
start
That
doing it to get out.
I love that comic when he was Venom.
I really thought, I was so excited that that's what we were going to get. And it ends up where, they leave. And the Maker even says, hey, we got to figure out what we're doing now. He kind of goes and he's like, Brock took Flash's codex away. It's frustrating, but I got a tracker. And if we need him in the future, we'll use him. You see that that's not their real big thing. They just they still want to know where the hell the dragon DNA, like all that stuff, and what's going on. And you see that the Maker has a little bigger plan.
Yeah, he's got other things brewing. There's Nick Fury, the Unseen up there. It looks like that guy in the middle looks like Morbid, or not Morbius, but the dude chasing the spiders right now. The you're right. The Inheritor, and then Thanos, Galactus, and Silver Surfer. I don't know what that circle is.
And the other kind of seems
Molecule
like Spider-Verse
possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
Molecule Man.
Yeah, and like you said, Galactus and stuff. So he's got, like you said, he has other things on his mind. And it's funny because there's a weird deal at the beginning where you have the Maker say, like, what would you do if you got out? And he's like, you would. And he even says to him, to Eddie, you'd probably go to San Francisco, right? To your dad. You had some problems there. And he's like, no, I think I'd go visit Flash's grave. And that goes. So to me, he does go right to Flash's grave then. And I think that this is definitely to show you that the Maker really isn't that concerned right now, because he already told him where he'd go.
Yeah, he knows exactly where he'd go, and that's exactly where he has a tracker as well. Going.
Yeah, and he goes.
The two places he told him he wasn't going is where he goes.
It's exactly where he'd go. And he has a tracker, so you're like, the Maker, all this was going on, but I really wish Flash was still involved. So you do see him go. He says goodbye to Flash. He's like, you know what? I'll carry you. You burned off. I don't hear you anymore. It was kind of neat that I did. You're kind of fully dead now. But I'll still have a piece of you wherever I go. And then he goes off to San Francisco, which was the second place to his house, where if the last time, if you remember, they kind of pull it out at the beginning of this as well. he did end up waking up. The symbiote had taken him to his father's house. And remember when he woke up and there was that other little kid where he, come on in. I can't remember his name. And it really threw Eddie off that it looked like his dad had started another
stepbrother or something.
Yeah, it seemed like his dad had started another family, and he seemed really thrown off. But then you end with a hooded figure going through a cave and ends up handing over a thing. Now, again, this is where I say that Donny Cates is really good with things. We already have fully spelled out with the vial of Flash Thompson. So when this vial gets handed over to this person, you kind of get the idea of what it might be. You know what I mean? And this is more of this dragon thing and the vessel and all this stuff going on. But he's already set that up. So you don't have to end a cliffhanger with all this exposition of, here it is, a vial. This is a this and a DNA strand. We've already gotten that. He just hands it over and goes. And then you see that they're pretty much going to try to remake Carnage. Is how it ends.
He's dead. They're trying to bring him back to life.
It was very well spelled out before that of bringing flashback that way with the vial he had. So I really, just to point out how well Donny Cates does this, he wants to give you a cliffhanger that's all about the shock of the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to explain things. It's almost like explaining a joke then. And that's not good. So you can't have a cliffhanger where you see that it's going to be Carnage and then, well, we're going to get this and we're going to get the body. And no, you've already gotten that info. So when they hand that and he goes and you see it's Carnage, then you're like, oh, crap. That's
it's all
pretty
put
cool.
Together for you.
Yeah, I really like it. I really think that this book is just so well put together. And where I had been down a little, even by the time Eric was just about to leave, I was a little down on this book. Not this issue. I really like this issue. I really like the whole thing with Flash. I got upset that it burned off. But by the end, having Carnage as the cliffhanger that they're going to make him and stuff like that. The only thing that I don't like is just the idea that you don't have the real symbiote yet.
Yeah.
You just have this.
I miss him already. Yeah.
Yeah. I need him to, that was the good thing. So now you just have Eddie walking around talking to himself. I like it when
a pity party for the most.
Yeah. So that's the only thing that but he has gone through some crap, so I can see how it is. But I still like this. But I give it an 8. I love the art. I could even go as high as an 8.5 probably, but I'm gonna stick with the 8. But I'm really enjoying it again, so I'm excited to see what's gonna go on. What would you give it?
Yeah, I'm rolling with an 8 for this one too. The cliffhanger really grabbed me by the end because I knew that Carnage one shot was coming out, and I was just real happy they did such a good job of setting it up in this book that it's just not a stupid superhero or supervillain resurrection now. It just has a little more sense to it behind it. Just a line throwing it away. Oh, I'm back again, or I got better. Something like that. So it gives a little more weight to the story coming up in the future. And I can't wait to really see another Venom Carnage story. I mean, it gets a little cheesy and just a little ultra violent.
I've never been around for one, so I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm pretty fired.
I personally always am a fan when Carnage comes around. I know some people don't really like him a whole bunch, but he's a good villain to have around in the Spider-Man universe every once in a while.
Yeah, and these are the things though that I expect. Like I've been hoping for with this fresh start. And again, we come on and, we have the little song I did at the beginning about fresh start. And fresh start seems to have been kind of left behind by Marvel. It seems to be like something they don't say anymore. It's just kind of like, but I still go with the idea that I'm here with a fresh start. It's the Jim fresh start. So what I want are these stories. I want to see, a Carnage Venom story. I want to see Green Goblin. I want to see, these are the things that I've always heard about. Now, some of these aren't possible. Some of them aren't going to happen, but those are the sort of things that would get me excited because I haven't been around for that. Now, I haven't been around for, say, the 8 million times that Spider-Man's a clone, but I already have a dual Spider-Man story under my belt. So at least I had that, but that's kind of the things that I want. And this is exciting. And with that, this book has been all about kind of revamping the whole universe of Venom and things like that. This feels like it's more back to what a lot of people, and people love this book. And it's such a big seller too for a Venom book. But I see some of the people who are detractors of it are just like, I've seen this before, this Venom stuff with, you got to recreate this and that. Tell me what the symbiotes are or whatever. But I think that most people will get excited, at least for a little, to have Carnage. So.
Yeah, it's well done. And his writing has such a more immediate payoff than so many other people. Like just that drag things out for 25 issues when you almost know what the answer is going to be. It's just like, tell it to me,
Yeah.
He doesn't hold your hand either. So you see everything,
it's a combo of everything
seeded throughout the story, and then boom, it's all wrapped up in one issue.
Yeah, and pointing out the whole deal. Like I said, you get Flash Thompson's DNA strand symbiote thing at the beginning. He does everything seems to have a purpose, and the purpose isn't 7 issues down the line.
Yeah.
The purpose is at the cliffhanger, or the purpose is 6 pages from then, or at the most the next issue.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot of string along, and that's why you have a lot of people do mini series, and we just talked about Cosmic Ghost Rider, where every issue had something strong about it.
Yeah.
He almost sat there and every issue has to be good in its own self. We have a lot of these mini series where you will have an issue. DC does the 6-issue mini, and I can tell you right now, the 4th issue is almost always nonsense setup. It almost is.
Yeah.
And then you get to the 5th issue, which half of that is to lead to a big cliffhanger for the end. He does not play that way, and he's so good. And again, one of the reasons why I'm glad we do this Marvel podcast is for him as well, just to enjoy his books. And then, Death of the Inhumans, I thought it was a little stinker of an ending. It wasn't awful, but it was kind of a stinker. So it's not like we're saying he's.
I'm just glad I don't have to listen to the excuse of, it's a 100-issue story for my payoff. Well,
I don't need that.
Way more payoff in 8 issues of Venom than I have in 58 issues.
And I think with this whole Venom story, like you said, he doesn't hold your hand. It's not a stupid story.
No,
it's got some nuances to it and things like that. So, but I don't need something that at the end, oh man, it really makes you think of what the hell happened, because I don't know. You have the stuff and you get excited for the next issue. That pretty much the basic thing in my reading of a comic, and I would say that most comic writers, what you're supposed to do is have an engaging story, and then when it ends, you want to read the next issue. And his issues always have me do that. But that is it for the first half of the podcast. We're going to go off now to be joined by Aaron for the second half.